Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone to Impact Dashboard Live. Today we're going to take a look at our online economic development impact model called Impact Dashboard. My name is Paul Shurin. I'm an economist with Impact Data Source, and I'll be demoing the app this afternoon. Today is a little bit of a special day for us. We're taking a look at the app, and it was just recently redesigned, and the redesign actually went live just earlier this week. So we're looking at, essentially, if you've seen the app in the past, looking at a brand new version of things. Um, Let me start off just by kind of talking a little bit about what Impact Dashboard is at a higher level. So essentially, Impact Dashboard is a web app that allows economic developers to collect, organize, and analyze data on businesses. So the app can generate impact reports so that economic developers can comprehensively evaluate economic development incentives and address the concerns of stakeholders. So what does that look like? We have some screenshots here I can show you before we get into everything completely. But here we can see on our screenshots the type of information that we're generating out of Impact Dashboard. So in the upper left-hand corner, we can see some information about jobs. We're making an acknowledgement of the direct jobs. In this case, we've got 50 direct jobs, and then some spin-off jobs. Those are the indirect and induced jobs that are created throughout the rest of the economy. We're noting the salaries of the direct workers as well as the spin-off workers. We're summarizing the capital investment that can be seen there in this particular project, investing $2.5 million or $2.4 million. And then all of that information is getting summarized into the graph that you see below. Over the 10-year period, the city is going to be receiving some additional revenues, some benefits, some additional tax revenue essentially. And then there's going to be some costs as the community grows, as you have more business activity, as you have more residential activity in a community. There could be some additional costs, so things like police, fire, EMS, those sorts of things. And so essentially we want to balance those additional revenues with some additional costs, and we determine in this case that we get some net benefits of about $250,000 over 10 years. And if we want to go into further detail, obviously Impact Dashboard can let us do that by looking at the specific sources of those benefits or the specific sources of those costs. Now, for a lot of economic developers, that might be a huge step forward in what they're doing. But Impact Dashboard lets them go even a step further by looking at incentives and saying, look, if you're going to offer a tax incentive of some type, that might feed back into the analysis and reduce the overall net benefits that we were looking at. Or if you're considering another type of incentive, maybe an infrastructure grant or just a good old job creation incentive, you might want to think of that. If you're thinking of that as an investment, you want to compare that to the results or to the return that you're getting over time. So here, in this case, if we've got that $250,000 in net benefits, what are the additional revenue, or excuse me, how does that incentive compare to those net benefits? And so in this case, we're seeing a payback period and a rate of return. So we're going to take a look at the app in just a moment, the actual online app. I'll log in and kind of click around a little bit. But first, I want to just take a moment to kind of clarify some things around Impact Dashboard, which is our online app, and my company, Impact Data Source. So the company's name is Impact Data Source. It was started by Jerry Walker in 1993. We're highly specialized in consulting services for economic and fiscal impact analysis. We support economic development organizations or governments to help them understand the impacts associated with economic development projects they might be considering. And so most of our consulting clients are looking at economic development agreements or some sort of other incentive. And we've prepared studies kind of on a consulting basis for Texas enterprise funds or other kind of state level incentives. And of course, the local economic development incentives that we're kind of talking about today. So the product, so Impact Data Source has this product, which is Impact Dashboard. It's a web-based app. We have over 100 clients using the model. We're kind of stretching across 15 different states with those 100 clients, where we cover over 150 counties. And our clients represent kind of a wide spectrum of ED organizations, cities, and counties. So we have cities with less than a 10,000 population. We've got large metro areas like Houston and so forth. We've got multi-county regions. We have a large swath of Central Florida modeled in Impact Dashboard. And then we've got other organizations that might just make this software available to their members. So in that case, it could be like a utility organization. So I'm going to switch over now to our actual app. So I'm on our website here to log in. I'm gonna put in a username and password for my kind of testing account here. And when I log in, what I'm going to see is all of my projects, or actually all of my active projects. So we can see our projects are represented here by tiles. In this view right now, I can see I have 6 active projects. We have tabs across the top here that allow us to look at other categories or other outcomes. So I've got a category here for 1, so projects that have been deemed to be won by our community. We can keep track of information on lost projects. If we don't want to delete the projects after we've kind of run it through, but maybe it didn't work out for us. And we also have an archive. So in the case of a project that kind of goes dormant, or you just want to get it off that active screen, we can categorize it there. If we wanted to just get a full stretch of all of our projects, we can do that here, and we can even see our kind of status icon for each of the projects on the tab as well. The navigation in Impact Dashboard is pretty straightforward. On the left-hand side, we've got a menu that shows the kind of the links to those specific project pages or categories. We also have a section here which would list out recent projects. So it might stack up several recent projects here. You also have access to your My Account page and the ability to sign out here from this left-hand navigation menu. Now, to create a project, we're here on our active screen. We can just hit Create a Project. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take a look at an existing project right now. Some other just things to note on the projects page here is that these tiles include some significant information for us. So looking at Project Armadillo, it's telling us we've got 5 scenarios that we've run for it. And we've got these, we can see these 2 different tags that we've got applied. So we've got a fiscal year 2019 tag and then a business park. And so these tags are just terms that I put on here so I can help kind of categorize and organize my things later on. So if I want to find all of my projects from fiscal year 2019, I can do that just like that. If I wanted to find those that were in the business park, we can do that as well, just by filtering that way on the tags. If we want to search just as a text basis, we can do that as well. We're looking at it here in our tile view, but if we look at it kind of listed out in rows, we can do that as well. I'm going to click on our Project Armadillo, and this is going to take us to our control center. And this is the project control center for Project Armadillo. On this page, we can see a list of all of our scenarios. So we have all of our 5 scenarios listed out here in the box at the upper left. And we can click on an individual scenario and preview it. So over here on this left, I can click on a scenario to preview it. And that's going to change the results over here and give us kind of a snapshot or a sneak peek at what's going on in that particular scenario. We can see the numbers and everything update as we do that. On a particular scenario, you have the ability to rename it if you need to right here, or you can copy it so you can kind of just work through different iterations. You can even delete them. From this control center, you can also apply those tags that we looked at. If we wanted to type in a new tag, we can do that, or we can choose from the tags that exist. We have another place here where we can upload documents. So this is a place where you might want to try to keep all of your files organized. If you have additional information on a particular project, or you have like an agreement, we can upload those documents and keep everything organized. I'm going to jump into an actual scenario here so we can see how this information comes together, how we get results out of the model. So when we click on a scenario, we're going to go into our scenario workspace, which essentially includes 3 different tabs that we see across the top. We've got the scenario info page, we've got the public support page, and the report page. I'm going to kind of go step by step here. We'll start on the scenario info page. This is the place where you're going to enter all of your project specific information. This is an example of a project that I've already typed some information in for, but I can show you later how we could start from scratch, so to speak. We've got some tiles across the top here that show us description, location, and industry. And then down here, we can see we've got sections that will accordion open to allow us to specify jobs or salaries, capital investment, and other sorts of things here. So if I click on description, this is just a place where we can enter a scenario title, where we can put in a description of the project that's going to go through to the report. So when you print out the report, it can have some more context. If we click forward here for the scenario location, we're going to be able to identify the specific tax districts that are affected by this project. So we have this case, it's not very exciting. We've got two different cities. So I could select, oh, this is either in the city of Arlington or the city of Burleson. In my school districts, I've got two different school districts. I've got Arlington ISD and Burleson ISD. But this is the part that we customize and we build in for all of our clients. So whatever the particular region we're going to cover, we'll build in all of the relevant tax districts. So if it's one city, but then maybe it covers 2 counties and 3 school districts, that's what you would see here in these drop downs. Now we also have a map on the right-hand side where we're able to type in an actual address and show that location, and just be able to kind of keep things even more organized. I'm going to click here next, and we'll be able to see that we have our scenario industry that we're asking for. And this is where we're going to specify the NAICS code or industry for the project, and that's going to pull in our multipliers. So in this, we've talked about some of the jobs and the spin-off jobs and all of that. We're calculating that activity using economic impact model. We're using RIMS2 multipliers to calculate that. So for example, if I wanted to look at, I'm just going to type in a different industry here. If I was going to do a warehousing project, I can start typing some words and it's going to search through and it's going to find that. I could just have easily typed in some a NAICS code, so type in some numbers, it would search based on the NAICS code. If I choose this, we're going to see it pulls in the multipliers that we see here. Before I talk about the multipliers, I'm going to put this back to our plywood manufacturer. So again, just typing some words, we can find our plywood manufacturing industry. And we've got a type 2 employment multiplier, a type 2 earnings multiplier. What that's saying is that for every dollar that's created, in the case of the employment multiplier, for every job that's created, for every job that's created, there's 1.8 total jobs created in the community. So that's the 1 direct job plus 0.8 spin-off jobs. So 7.79, whatever, 0.8 spin-off jobs. You do have the ability to overwrite these multipliers if you need to. In certain circumstances, that may be appropriate, or if you're trying to make it match up with some other study that was done where they use different multipliers. We can see all of our inputs, the project-specific inputs here on this left-hand side. We're asking about the number of jobs to be created each year. You can see we're looking at this over the first 5 years. We've got jobs added in year 1, 2, 3, and so on. If we stretch this out, if we click on this little arrow, we could actually specify jobs being added over the full 10-year period of this analysis. Now, if I start changing some of these things, and I'll just change a couple here to show you that on the right-hand side, everything starts updating in real time. So as you start entering new numbers, you're going to see the results change there on the other side. I'm going to go back and just leave this kind of as I found it, put it at our 50 jobs. Now on the right-hand side, again, we're seeing things update. And what do we see here? We've got our jobs, our summary of our jobs, information about our salaries, and that capital investment. We're also seeing our net benefits being calculated over the 10-year period. This is for the city specifically. It's telling us City of Arlington right here. If we wanted to see what's going on for Tarrant County, we can click on that, or the school district, or any of these entities, and get the information that we want for that particular district. Go back to our city here. On this left-hand side, we've got inputs really for a number of really relevant inputs that are going to be project-specific. So salaries, capital investment, building permits and fees. This project looks like previously I was messing around with some lease revenue that we were going to be paying to the city as a result of one of these projects. But this wouldn't necessarily be included in every case, but you do have the ability to add additional revenues or additional costs on the fly as you're generating results. So if we go to our public support page next, we're going to be able to model different types of incentives. And so here on this public support page, we can click which entity we want to model incentives for. So I'm clicked on here with the city tab, and I'm modeling right now as we're looking at this a property tax abatement from the perspective of the city. We're doing 100% abatement for the first 5 years on the building. So that's what we've typed in here. That's what we're calculating over here. So in the graph, just to kind of summarize what's going on in the graph, we're showing our property taxes here in these dark blue bars above the line. These dark blue bars are showing us the property tax that would be paid to the city of Arlington over the next 10 years based on the additional property that the company is adding and the city's portion of the property tax rate. If we looked at this for the county, we'd be looking at the county's property taxes. But here, this is the city. So $169,000, that's essentially if we stacked all these blue bars on top of each other, that would reach up to $169,000. Now, this 100% abatement for 5 years on the building taxes, that's being shown or represented here with these lighter blue bars. And so this abatement is worth about $35,000. The value of that property tax abatement is $35,000. So on a net basis, the net collections on property taxes here from the company would be $133,000 over the 10-year period. We can see we've been looking at this in a graph, but we can actually pull it up as a table if we wanted to. If we wanted to get that broken out in any more detail, we can certainly get that. The other type of incentives that we can see on this page, if the project is actually supporting some taxable sales, so maybe a manufacturer wouldn't have taxable sales, but if the project did have taxable sales and you wanted to rebate some of those, you could certainly do that, and that's what's going on here. And then we have this other category, which we called somewhat generically a non-tax incentive, just because it's not tied to a specific tax incentive or a specific tax revenue. But in this case, it's an incentive that you can think of as maybe just your, like here, a job creation grant, or maybe it's an amount of infrastructure improvements that need to be made. We can run those numbers here. So I'll show you how that works a little bit. Let me put this back so we can specify as an incentive amount. And let's just say that the company said, hey, we need $350,000 to fix up the site and make these infrastructure improvements. And so what we can do if we put in $350,000 as that incentive amount, we treat that as an investment in the project, and we're going to compare the investment against those net benefits that the city is going to get over the next 10 years. So in this case, our net benefits for the city are represented by this orange line stretching up in year 10. Looks like it's over $450,000 in this case. And that $350,000, it's going to give us a 13.5% average annual rate of return, and will be paid back in 7.5 years. So it's somewhat of a long payback period. We've got to hope that this company's around for at least 7.5 years till we get all our money back on the $350,000 incentive. Now, you might say, well, I want to figure out what the incentive might be, not $350,000, but we have to get paid back in 3 years. So we can actually fix any one of these different criteria. So if we want to say, look, we need a 3-year payback period, tell me the incentive, we can do that. We've fixed the payback period at 3 years, and now the model has calculated the non-tax incentive to be $142,000. Again, we can kind of pinpoint our incentive any way we'd like. I'm going to click back to our incentive per job, and I'm going to put it back at our $1,500 to kind of show what that looks like when we pay out incentives kind of per year along with that hiring schedule. We've got a 1.4-year payback period, so essentially the city will have collected enough revenue to cover the value of that incentive before it's finished even paying out the incentive. It's a 63% rate of return in this case, only $75,000. Now, I'm going to go to the reports page, and we'll see kind of how all of this comes together and how you can generate reports and really dig into the results. So here on the report page, we have a series of summary reports. Essentially, these are one-page reports, infographic style reports that summarize kind of the basics from each one of the perspectives of the tax entity. So I've got the city, the county, school district, and so on. Here I'm looking at the city of Arlington. It's a one-page report showing us those net benefits over 10 years, summarizing those economic impacts and capital investment information. We show more detail on the revenues coming in. So here we can see all the different sources of our benefits, all the sources of our costs. We can see footnotes about the value of the property tax abatement that was deducted from these numbers. And I had left in the sales tax rebate as well. Over here on the right-hand side, we can see our incentive analysis where we're showing that $1,500 per job getting paid back in just 1.4 years, and it's kind of compared against our net benefits of $471,000, this net benefit number here. At the very bottom, we can see that this is focusing on the city's net benefits of $471,000, but the county, the school district, and some other districts are receiving revenue as well. If we wanted to, we could click on here for the Tarrant County's impact, and we can see what that looks like as well. The county was offering a property tax abatement, it looks like, is in this particular example. You can print these reports off just by clicking here and then saving them essentially as a PDF, or printing them straight off. If we click on the detailed report, this is where we're going to have a little bit longer report. So it goes into more detail. It includes the impact across all of the districts. So whereas the summary report was 1 page, 1 district, here we've got a detailed report that's got a little bit more of a narrative built into it, and a little bit more detailed tables. So I'm going to scroll down, and we can see that on this major table that we have here, the fiscal impact overview, we're showing you essentially this is the impact across all of the different tax districts. So you can see, for the city, the county, the school district, all of the districts, we've got our benefits, our costs, and our net benefits summarized in this table, and then with a chart. And then we can also see an overview of the public support that's considered. So the different property tax incentives being offered by various districts, and what that total package comes out to here with $124,000. If we continue to scroll down in this report, and if we were to print it off, it might be 15 to 20 pages, depending on how much we've got going on in a particular analysis. But here as we scroll down, we'll be able to see the detail for each one of the tax districts. So here are all our benefits and costs for the city. If we keep scrolling, we'll see all of the information on the public support provided by the city or being considered by the city. And as I keep scrolling, we've got our non-tax incentives being detailed as well, and then we get into the county, the school district, and so on. So that's, again, that report can be printed out just as we look at it here, clicking on that button. One of the things I haven't touched on yet is this settings area. So if we click on this gear icon up here, we're able to get in and adjust some of the settings and assumptions for our model. So you can see I've actually modified some of these things already. So there's a lot of parameters and a lot of tax rates, a lot of things going on in the background with our model. These are things that we set up for you that you won't have to, provide to get set up and to get started and using it. We do the research on the front end, and we make it available to you. What you see here is your ability to get in and modify things on a particular scenario if you need to. So for example, if we wanted to zero out the real property appreciation over the time period, we can do that here. Typically in this case, we've got a 2% default value, but if you wanted to make it 0, no increase, we can do that. The other things that we can change that's pretty common might be the scenario length. So far we've been looking at this project over just a 10-year period. If we wanted to look at it over 15, just as easy as touching that or changing that button, we can go here, and now we see our analysis is running for a 15-year period. And so all of these numbers, all of the benefits have been calculated over a 15-year period. I'm going to go back here for a moment. So I'm going to close out of our scenario and keep everything that we've got there. Now, if I were going to create a brand new project, what we've been looking at so far is just one that I've already created. If I go back out, I'm going to create a brand new project just to show how this all comes together. So if I do a test project here, I'll say create. It'll give me a new line, and I can click on here, and I can actually jump into our project control center for this test project. We don't really have anything showing here. There's not a lot happening yet because we don't have any scenarios. First thing I can do, maybe if I wanted to add our fiscal year 2019 tag, we can do something like that. And then there's 2 ways that we can get data into the model. So one way would be just to type that information in kind of as it sits on the screen. So if I click add scenario, what that's going to do is give me the opportunity to type in the information straight away. So this is where I can put in a scenario name, I can put in a description, I can choose where the project is located. Maybe I'll put it in Burleson this time. And I can identify whatever our manufacturing or whatever we want to put. I can put in our NAICS code, we'll choose our multiplier. Okay, and so I'm just starting to type in the information straight away. This may be the case where you've had a discussion with the company, or maybe they sent you a bunch of information, and you're just kind of getting a sense of what these impacts might be. So I'm typing in a number of things, and it's going to calculate, and we can generate reports, right? So that's one way to do it. We're just typing it in. Now the other way to do it, the other way to get information into the model would be to request data from a prospect. So here we can click on this link and it'll give us the ability to create an email, and I can send this email to our prospect. Maybe his name is Bob, XYZ Corp. And I'm going to send an email to Bob. I'm going to modify this a little bit. I'll say, hi, Bob. Please provide the information on your project using the data form below. If you have any questions, contact me. And this is my contact information because this is kind of my test account, but this would have our client's contact information. And then if you were to send this to Bob, what he's going to do, he's going to get an email and has a link out for him to complete a data form. And so this data form that's loading right now is going to give us the opportunity for Bob to fill in the information but not see any of the calculations. So Bob is going to fill out who's completing the data form, information about his company. He's going to tell us the industry, that NAICS code, just like we talked about, tell us about the jobs, the salaries, capital investment, all those different things that we need. And then he can give us some additional background, whatever additional information he wants to tell us about his project. And when he's all done, he's going to hit the send data button, and I'm going to get an email that says, hey, Bob filled out that data form, log back into Impact Dashboard and check it out. If that happens, so if we kind of go through that whole process, this tab, or this button, excuse me, is going to change, and it's going to say data received. And so from that point, you're able to create a scenario with the data that was received from the prospect. And so what would that do? It would just take the data that Bob sent you, plug it into a scenario, and that's when you'd be able to see all of the calculations, all the results, and kind of review what he sent and move on from there. Maybe add the incentives and whatever else you need to do. I'm trying to think here. I think I've kind of covered everything. We do have in this new version of the app, we've got this My Account settings where we can actually modify some of those tags. So I had been kind of playing with putting a brand new tag in there, but I don't really want to keep that around. I'll hit delete here, and now that won't populate or won't be a suggested tag when I start typing. We can see that the other tags, I've got 6 projects that are tagged as fiscal year 2019. I've got 5 projects tagged as fiscal year 2018. So this is where you can kind of administer those tags that we were kind of playing with. And we've also got the ability to take a look at TIF districts and then apply TIF districts to individual projects. I won't go into that on this demo. The other kind of cool feature here that we have is if we want to change up the styling. So this blue color scheme throughout the app works well for me with my blue logo here. But if we wanted to look at it, maybe if our logo had more green on it, we can change the app essentially and have it take on your branding. So if we go back now to our projects page, we can see we've got green. If we look at our control center, we can see now these graphics are coming up using the green color scheme. And so even the reporting and everything all the way through the app, it's now kind of geared more toward the branding that you'd have in your logo. So we've got a couple different color schemes that you can play with there. The default blue one looks pretty good for a lot of clients, but you can certainly swap it out with something else if you'd like. If you have any questions, I know this was a lot of information kind of all at once. I'm sure there's questions about kind of maybe how some things work. We can address those kind of on a more of a one-to-one call. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Paul. Paul Shurin at Impact Data Source. You can just type in my email address is paul@impactdatasource.com. And this video will be recorded, so you'll get a copy of it tomorrow if you want to check it out. Again, if there's anything you want to show maybe someone else. But I appreciate you for joining Impact Dashboard Live, and feel free to reach out with any questions. Thanks so much.